Hello, all. Thank you for jumping on. Appreciate HVAC AutoPilot community and everyone else watching this video. Today, we're going to talk about the number one pricing mistake HVAC techs make. And the number one pricing mistake is not that they're charging too much. It's usually that you're charging too little. But here's the real problem. Most techs are not undercharging because they're bad at HVAC or bad at pricing. They're undercharging because they are pricing the job instead of pricing the business. Their pricing is based on the job instead of pricing the job for the business. They look at materials, they look at labor, they add a little markup, they do a little multiple, and then they hope that the profit left at the end is enough. And that is a mistake. Most HVAC techs price a job. They usually think about something like, my equipment costs this much, my materials cost this much, my techs or helper will be there for this many hours. So if I add some markup, a little bit of profit, I should be good. But that only looks at the job sitting in front of you. It doesn't look at the company behind the job. And that's where the money gets lost because your business has costs, whether you are on the job or not. You have a truck payment, you have insurance payments, fuel, tools, software, phones, office costs, marketing, callbacks, taxes, training, and all the other expenses required to stay in business. If those costs are not built into your pricing, it doesn't matter because they still have to get paid. They just get paid out of your profits, and that's where you miss out. So here's the part that hurts a lot of HVAC companies. They think they made money on the job because the customer paid more than the material and labor costs. But when they look at the bank account at the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the week, there is nothing left. And that's because profits is not what is left over by accident. Profit has to be built into the price on purpose. A job can look profitable on paper if you only count materials and labor. But once you add overhead, drive time, non-billable hours, helper burden, job delays, callbacks, permits, rentals, expenses, truck stock, the profit can disappear fast. This is why pricing based only on labor and materials is very dangerous. It gives you a false sense of profit. So while you're thinking, oh, at this job, let me upsell, let me put a little bit of markup. At first glance, it feels like you made a couple $1,000s. But did you really? Did you figure out the truck and the crew there? Did you figure out insurance? Did you figure out the time spent picking up and materials? Think about the difference in time between a high rise and a duplex and a single family home. Office expenses, unanswered phones, these are all profit draining activities in the company that need to be factored in when pricing. Software, permits, callbacks. The riskier the job, the higher the callback volume. What about the fact that your techs do non-billable hours every day? Is that factored? Days off, vacation days, sick days. Calculate that into your pricing. Once you start adding the real business costs, that couple grand of profits starts to shrink quickly. And sometimes the job you thought was profitable was barely breaking even. Or worse, it actually cost you money. So the correct way to think about pricing is not to ask, what do I think this job should cost? The better question is, what does this job need to sell for in order to cover the true cost of doing business and still leave a profit in the business? I'm going to say that again. It's not thinking about what this job should cost. The better question is, what does this job need to sell for in order to cover the true cost of doing business and still leave a profit? That means your price needs to account for materials, labor, markup, overhead, job expenses, efficiency, and profits. Efficiency is a big one. Just because someone works 40 hours does not mean they bill out for 40 hours. There is drive time, loading time, supply house time, cleanup, meeting, callbacks, delays, paperwork, waiting around. If you price as if every hour is billable, you're probably underpricing. That is why your pricing cannot just be based on what the technician makes per hour. It has to be based on what it costs the company to produce one profitable hour. That is completely different number. Can't be on what the technician makes per hour. It has to be based on what it costs the company to produce one profitable hour. So this is where our HVAC AutoPilot calculator comes in. And what's useful about this is it's powered by a real world capacity engine. We want to put in all the real numbers in here. So if you scroll down, you realize if you've been improperly pricing for the job and not the business, you think, let me put my wage tech in here, my materials, the hours for each tech. Let's not even look at the markup. Let's keep all the markups the same, just to get an idea of what the cost is. So we're thinking this job's going to cost us $22.10, right? Average hourly cost of one tech of 1 hour is $31.58. So now, like, you're thinking, okay, let me mark things up here. So you're gonna 1.5x the material. You're gonna increase your labor crew margin by 20%. And you're thinking, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna make $1,000 here. It's gonna be perfect. All I have to charge is, let's call it 3,200 to be profitable. I'm gonna make 1,000. It's gonna be great. But now let's put in the real world numbers. $30 for labor tech's not just going to do it. There's additional labor burden with employer tax. Let's call it 10%, some state taxes in there, unemployment, things like that. Then you talk about overhead, the trucks, the maintenance, depreciation on the trucks. You're eventually going to have to replace that. Office expenses, software, anything you can think of that you have to pay, whether you sell a job or not, is going to be part of your overhead, including your owner's pay and your owner's distribution of profits, basically what you need to live on. So let's call that 250,000. Let's be conservative, call it 250K. And your efficiency, we know now, whether you do high rises or just regular things, there's a lot of downtime. So at best, let's call it 65. Your markup, let's keep all the markups the same. And it's 20% markup. So where you thought $3,200 was making you $1,000, in reality you have to charge $3,800 to make that $1,000 profit. And in addition to that, because your efficiency is 65%, you got to make sure you're booking out all your billable hours. If you realize, hey, I have 40 hours in a week and they're really only working 20 or billing worth 20 or 30 hours, then your efficiency is much lower. I mean, if you're talking about you're under 50, let's say 35, you're going to have to charge a lot more to improve, to make that same type of profit that's going to cover your overhead of 250. So it's very important that you understand the real world numbers, labor burden. Oh, we haven't even put days off here. Let's say you have a couple of days off, paid and unpaid. That changes your total cost. So before, while you thought your hourly cost was $31, in reality, it could be up to $217 if your efficiency is not there. You're taking a lot of days off and you're not calculating the right markups on your items. Within this calculator, we also have a service and install, because we know service jobs are different from install jobs, mainly in efficiency and in hours worked. So this is available through HVAC AutoPilot or through our subscribers. You can jump on there, review the pricing calculator, test it out with some of the jobs you've done, see if what you thought your profits were once you enter overhead and everything else, if that's correct. So again, that's the difference between understanding that you're pricing for your business and not necessarily pricing for a job. So in closing, remember, the number one pricing mistake HVAC techs make is pricing the job instead of pricing the business. Materials and labor are only part of the equation. Your overhead, efficiency, expenses, and profit have to be included too. Because if you do not build those costs into your pricing, they come out from your pocket. And that is how busy HVAC companies stay busy, but still do not make money, is by the number one pricing mistake. So jump on. Thank you for watching the video, but jump on through HVAC AutoPilot. The link's in the comments below, and subscribe. Use the pricing calculator and get your pricing up to date to avoid the number one mistake. Thanks for watching.